Hi, my name is Simran Mahmood, and I'm doing my presentation on the integumentary system, and more specifically, the skin. So, the integumentary system is made up of skin and its accessory organs. And of course, the organ that I chose to do this presentation on is the skin. So the anatomical location of skin. So the skin has 3 layers. It's made up of the epidermis and the dermis, which are the main layers of the skin. And then there's a third layer called the hypodermis located underneath it. Also, the skin covers every inch of our body, so it's a little hard to kind of pinpoint where its location is using anatomical terms. What I can say is you can probably use anatomical terms to describe skin by hypothetically saying where the skin is located in relation to where another area of the skin is located. So you could say that the area of skin on our chest is superior to the area of skin on our thighs, or that the area of skin on our back is posterior, or dorsal to the area of skin on our stomach. Lastly, we could also say that the skin on our pinky finger is proximal compared to the skin on our thumb when looking upon it from the correct anatomical position. Types of cells. So there are 4 types of cells that make up the skin. These are the keratinocytes, Merkel cells, melanocytes, and Langerhans cells. Alright, so the keratinocyte is a cell that makes and stores a protein called keratin. These cells are located in the stratum basal layer of the skin. And of course, keratin is a fibrous protein that gives hair, nails, and also skin its hardness and water-resistant qualities. So among the basal cells in the stratum basal, there are 2 other types of cells that make up the skin. So the first of these is a Merkel cell, which kind of functions as a receptor, and it's also responsible for stimulating nerves that give off sensory impulses to the brain, which perceives things such as touch or motion. These cells are especially abundant on our hands and our feet, where they are most located. So the second type of cell that is dispersed among the basal cells in the stratum basal are the melanocytes. This is a cell that produces a pigment called melanin. Melanin gives hair and skin its color. And it also helps protect the epidermis, which is the top layer of our skin, from UV radiation damage. And you can get that from lots of things, but especially the sun. And then among the keratinocytes of the stratum spinosum layer is a type of dendritic cell called the Langerhans cell, and its main function is to kind of be a macrophage by engulfing bacteria, foreign particles, and also other damaged cells that occur in this layer, so it acts as a macrophage. Functions. So I found a bunch of functions that the skin participates in. The 4 main ones are protection, sensory input, thermoregulation, and communication. So it protects our body from things such as UV radiation. Sensory input, like I previously mentioned, it has lots of touch receptors, many other types of sensory receptors, and it communicates with the brain. Thermoregulation, so it helps maintain internal body temperature, and I'll go over that a little bit more when we get to the homeostasis part of this presentation. And also communicates with other parts of our body, and of course communicates with the brain. And of course the skin is able to protect us from the elements, which is, like I said, the first function of the skin. It can protect us from elements because of keratin, like I said, which it is a protein manufactured in our cells that, you know, gives our nails and hair its hardness and water resistant properties. So homeostasis. So the skin maintains homeostasis in a number of ways. The first one, like I mentioned in the previous slide, is thermoregulation, which is temperature balance internally. It also uses arterioles to dissipate heat within the body so we don't overheat. And it also retains water because of the protein keratin, which is water resistant. And I'll go a little bit more over this and how the skin maintains homeostasis. So firstly, the skin maintains homeostasis by thermoregulation. So when our bodies become too hot, there are sweat glands called sudoriferous glands that make sweat, and it can actually help cool our bodies down when it evaporates on our skin. And there's also another type of sweat gland called an eccrine sweat gland, and it's a type of gland that also makes sweat for temperature balance. And this type of sweat gland can be found all over our body. Alright, and so the eccrine sweat glands also produce sweat that is hypotonic in nature, which means it's mainly consisting of water, which is really useful when it comes to cooling the body down. And then the second way that I mentioned that the skin maintains homeostasis is through arterioles dissipating heat, and how that works is the arterioles expand so that excess heat carried by the blood can dissipate through the skin and into the surrounding environment. And then when our temperature in our bodies decrease, the arterioles will shrink, and that will help retain body heat and therefore reduce the loss of heat inside our bodies. The skin also prevents our bodies from losing water because of keratin, like I previously mentioned. And so my prediction on the problems that would occur in this organ if it could not maintain homeostasis. One I said was overheating, and the second one that I mentioned was organ damage. So if our body could not sweat and cool itself down, it could overheat. And then, of course, is dehydration. I'm sorry, I blanked out for a minute. Our bodies could also suffer from dehydration because the skin could not retain water properly if the keratinocytes in our bodies didn't work properly. Also, there would be internal damage to our organs if our skin couldn't protect us from things such as the elements, UV radiation, and things of that nature. And lastly, a disease that could occur within our skin is melanoma. And melanoma is a cancer that is characterized by uncontrolled growth of melanocytes, which is, of course, the type of cells that create pigment in our top layer of skin called the epidermis. Usually, as the textbook states, melanoma develops from a mole, and it is also the most fatal of all the skin cancers. It is highly metastatic, which means it can spread to other areas of the body, and it's also very difficult to detect before it metastasizes, so spreads to other areas of the body. Melanomas usually appear as little asymmetrical brown or sometimes black patches, and doctors actually use the A, B, C, and D's of the melanoma to kind of detect it. So A stands for asymmetry, so the two sides are not symmetrical when you're looking at a melanoma. The B is borders, so the edges will be irregular in shape. C stands for color, and the color usually varies, but it'll usually typically be brown or black. And lastly, D stands for diameter, which means it is larger than 6 millimeters, which is 0.24, so almost quarter of an inch. Yeah, and thank you so much for watching my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.